You mean to tell me, Ambassador Cathrix clicked their mandibles in what humans had learned was their species' equivalent of an eye roll, that your entire civilization advanced to its current state without a unified governing body? Sarah Thompson, humanity's lead representative at the Galactic Council's annual summit, took a long sip of her coffee, the real stuff, imported from Earth at ridiculous expense, and smiled. Oh, it gets better. Not only did we advance without unity, we actually advanced because of our disunity. The ambassador's crystalline eyes flickered in rapid succession, a sure sign of cognitive distress among the Zecatri. That's impossible. The chaos alone would drive innovation through competition? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Would force different approaches to the same problems? Would create thousands of simultaneous experiments in governance, technology, and social organization? Would cause extinction! Cathrix's translator squealed with the force of their outburst, causing several nearby delegates to turn their heads. The ambassador lowered their voice. Every species here achieved spaceflight only after achieving planetary unity. It's the natural order. It's logical? Sarah supplied helpfully, enjoying this conversation far too much. Like how every species here developed FTL travel using quantum folding, while we humans stumbled onto hyperdrive technology because some grad student was trying to make a better coffee maker? The story of Janet Chen and her accidental discovery of hyperdrive principles while attempting to create the ultimate espresso machine was, of course, a massive oversimplification of 20 years of theoretical physics work. But Sarah never tired of watching alien diplomats twitch when she told it that way. Cathrix's carapace had taken on a distinctly greener hue, a sign of deep distress. But how do you function? How do you coordinate? How do you achieve anything without consensus? Sarah set down her coffee cup and leaned forward. Let me tell you about something we humans call spite. The thing about humans that terrified most alien species wasn't our resilience, though that certainly unnerved them. It wasn't our adaptability, though that baffled them. It wasn't even our capacity for violence, though that definitely kept them up at night, or whatever passed for night in their respective circadian rhythms. No, what truly terrified them was our capacity to turn virtually any emotion, particularly negative ones, into fuel for progress. Take spite, for example. Spite had driven more human innovation than perhaps any other emotion except curiosity. And let's be honest, even curiosity often had a healthy dose of, "I'll show them," mixed in. You're telling me, Cathrix said slowly, their translator struggling to convey the proper level of disbelief, that your species went to your moon primarily because one group wanted to prove they were better than another group. The space race, Sarah nodded sagely. Nothing motivates humans quite like someone saying you can't do that or we'll do it first. But that's so inefficient, wasteful. Maybe, but it worked. And here's the really fun part. We didn't stop there. You know how your species developed one way to achieve spaceflight, perfected it, and standardized it across your world? Cathrix nodded, antennae quivering with what might have been pride. Well, we currently have about 15 different private companies all developing their own unique approaches to space travel, each convinced their way is best, and each absolutely determined to prove everyone else wrong. The ambassador's translator made a sound that could only be described as a digital whimper. The conversation might have ended there, but fate, or more accurately Dr. Marcus Chen from the Human Scientific Coalition, chose that moment to burst into the diplomatic lounge, tablet in hand and lab coat fluttering dramatically. We did it, he announced to no one in particular, though his eyes locked onto Sarah. The quantum tunneling experiment worked. We can officially tell the Galactic Council to stuff their impossible energy threshold theorem right up there. Dr. Chen, Sarah cut in smoothly. May I introduce Ambassador Cathrix of the Zecatri Consensus, who happens to be the leading authority on quantum physics in the Council. Marcus didn't miss a beat. If anything, his grin grew wider. Perfect. Here, look at these results. Your theorem said it couldn't be done. We did it anyway. Want to know how? Cathrix, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy, reluctantly extended one of their manipulator appendages to accept the tablet. Their eyes flickered rapidly as they processed the data. This is impossible, they finally managed. You can't simply ignore the fundamental laws of— Oh, we didn't ignore them, Marcus interrupted cheerfully. We just found a loophole. See, your theorem assumes a linear progression through quantum states, but what if you approach it laterally? Here, let me show you the math. Sarah sat back, sipping her coffee and watching as her colleague proceeded to explain, in enthusiastic detail, how humanity had once again achieved the impossible through what amounted to scientific spite. Cathrix's carapace was shifting through various shades of green and blue, their cultural equivalent of an emotional crisis. The thing about humans that really got under alien carapaces wasn't just that we did impossible things, it was how we did them. Take the matter of first contact. When humanity finally met the galactic community, we were expected to be overwhelmed, to be humbled by their advanced technology, to fall in line with their carefully ordered systems and protocols. Instead, we took one look at their tech and said, "Cool, but have you tried doing it this way?" The Galactic Council had spent millennia perfecting their methods. Every species that joined brought their innovations into the fold, each one carefully vetted and integrated into the existing framework. Progress was steady, measured, and above all safe. Then humans showed up with their jerry-rigged solutions and completely unauthorized innovations. "You know what the really funny part is?" Sarah said to Cathrix, who looked like they were seriously reconsidering their career choices. "Most of our best innovations came from people being told, 'That's not how it's done,' or 'That will never work.'" But why?" Cathrix's translator seemed to be struggling with the concept. "Why not simply follow the established methods?" "Where's the fun in that?" Marcus chimed in, still bouncing with excitement over his team's breakthrough. "Besides, half the time we don't even know what the established methods are. We just see a problem and think, 'I bet I could fix that.' Without proper protocols? Without consensus?" "Especially without consensus," Sarah nodded. "You wouldn't believe how many world-changing innovations started with someone saying, 'Hold my beer and watch this.'" Cathrix's translator gave up entirely on that one, producing only a confused buzz. The story spread through the Galactic Council like a virus, another concept that made most species deeply uncomfortable, the idea of using harmful organisms to build immunity. Soon, other ambassadors were dropping by their lounge, each wanting to confirm the rumors for themselves. "Is it true?" asked the Palexi representative, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with curiosity, "that your species developed faster-than-light communication because two of your entertainment companies were competing to stream video content?" "Well, technically it was 3 companies," Sarah corrected, "and they were mainly trying to reduce lag in online gaming, but yes." "But the Council had determined that quantum entanglement was the only viable method for FTL communication," protested another delegate. "Yeah, we saw that research," Marcus nodded. "That's actually what convinced us there had to be another way. No offense, but quantum entanglement seemed way too complicated for what we wanted to do." The gathered aliens exchanged looks of horror, disbelief, and in a few cases, what might have been grudging admiration. The real kicker, the thing that truly kept the Galactic Council up at night, wasn't just that humans did impossible things out of spite. It was that we taught others to do the same. It started small. A junior researcher from the Palexi delegation asked Marcus about human research methods. A Zekatry engineer quietly approached Sarah about human project management techniques. Before long, there was an unofficial Human Approach Study Group meeting in the Council's auxiliary conference room. The Council, predictably, was horrified. "This is unacceptable," the High Administrator declared during an emergency session. "You are disrupting thousands of years of established protocol." Sarah stood at the podium, the picture of diplomatic calm. "With all due respect, Administrator, we haven't disrupted anything. We're simply sharing our methods with those who are interested in learning them." "Your methods are chaos." "Our methods are innovation," she corrected. "And judging by the size of that study group, quite a few species are interested in a little chaos." But... The Administrator's universal translator struggled to convey their distress. "What about consensus?" Sarah smiled. It was the same smile she'd given Cathrix over coffee. The smile that humans had been giving authority figures since the first cave-dwelling ancestor decided to ignore the tribe's warnings and eat that suspicious-looking berry. "Consensus is overrated," she said. "Sometimes the best ideas come from someone standing up and saying, 'I disagree, and I'm going to prove it.'" The fallout was both predictable and surprising. Predictably, the Council tried to ban unauthorized innovation methods. They established committees to study the problem. They drafted regulations. Surprisingly, to them at least, this only made things worse. Because if there's one thing humans had taught the galaxy, it was that nothing drives innovation quite like someone saying, "You can't do that." Within a year, the number of registered patents in Council space had tripled. New technologies were being developed at an unprecedented rate. Species that had been content to follow established protocols for millennia were suddenly asking, "What if?" And at the center of it all was humanity, watching with a mixture of pride and amusement as our cosmic neighbors discovered the joy of proving others wrong. You realize what you've done, don't you? Cathrix asked Sarah during another coffee session, nearly a year after their first conversation. Their carapace had settled into a more relaxed hue, and they'd even developed a taste for espresso. Sarah raised an eyebrow, hiding her smile behind her cup. You've infected the entire galaxy with your species' particular brand of spite-driven innovation? Yes! Cathrix's antennae twitched. Do you know what happened in my research division last week? One of my junior scientists questioned my methodology. Actually questioned it. And then proceeded to develop an entirely new approach that... They paused, mandibles clicking in what Sarah had learned was embarrassment. That actually worked better than the established method. Terrible, isn't it? Sarah grinned. Next thing you know, they'll be trying things just to see what happens. They already are! Cathrix's translator managed to convey both horror and excitement. Yesterday, I overheard two of them planning to combine elements of our quantum folding technology with your hyperdrive principles, just to see if they could create a hybrid system. And initial simulations suggest it might actually work. It's completely unprecedented, totally outside protocol, and potentially revolutionary. Cathrix's carapace shifted through several colors rapidly. I should report them to the council. But you won't, Sarah said confidently. No, Cathrix admitted after a moment. I won't. In fact, I've allocated additional resources to their project. In secret, of course. Sarah's grin widened. Welcome to the dark side, Ambassador. We have coffee. And that, dear readers, is the real reason aliens fear humanity. Not because of our strength, our adaptability, or our capacity for violence, but because we taught the galaxy something dangerous. That progress doesn't require consensus. That the phrase, "that's impossible," is better treated as a challenge than a limitation. And most importantly, that sometimes the best reason to do something is simply because someone said you couldn't. Some call it spite. Some call it determination. Some call it human nature. We just call it Tuesday. The Galactic Council eventually gave up trying to regulate innovation methods. They had to. Their own species had caught the human bug of trying things just to see what happens. As for Sarah and Cathrix, they still meet for coffee regularly. These days, though, they spend less time discussing the impossibility of human methods, and more time plotting ways to combine their species' technologies in new and interesting ways. Their latest project? Finding a way to make Cathrix's quantum coffee maker compatible with Sarah's ancient Italian espresso machine. The Council's physics department has officially declared it impossible. They're taking that as a challenge. Have you seen this? Dr. Marcus Chen slid his tablet across the table to Sarah Thompson, nearly knocking over her precious coffee in the process. The Council's IT department is having a complete meltdown. Sarah rescued her coffee cup and glanced at the screen. Her eyes widened. Is that a human IT ticket system? Better, Marcus grinned. It's a human IT ticket system that some brilliant bastard introduced to the Council's tech support division last month. Look at the metrics. Sarah scrolled through the data, her grin growing wider with each swipe. Oh, this is beautiful. Response times down 60%, problem resolution up 75%, and... Wait, is that a meme library integrated into the response templates? The Zacatri are particularly fond of the "have you tried turning it off and on again" gif. Marcus nodded sagely. Though I think it's mostly because they don't understand why the human in the image looks so dead inside. The thing about bureaucracy is that it's universal. Every advanced civilization develops it, nurtures it, and eventually becomes enslaved by it. The Galactic Council had elevated bureaucracy to an art form, with procedures for developing procedures about how to procedure. Their IT support system had been a masterpiece of overcomplication. 15 different forms to report a malfunctioning quantum terminal. 23 levels of approval needed to request a software update, and a response time measured in galactic standard months. Then Raj Patel happened. Raj wasn't anyone special in the grand scheme of things. He was just a human IT contractor hired to help maintain the Earth Embassy's systems. But Raj had something that no Council IT technician had ever developed. An intense hatred of inefficiency combined with the very human trait of asking, why not? It started innocently enough. A Pelexi diplomat asked him for help with a malfunctioning datapad. Instead of directing them to fill out Form QX7249B, request for technical assistance, personal devices, non-emergency, Raj just fixed it. The diplomat was stunned. But where's the documentation, the approval chain, the risk assessment? Did your pad start working again? Raj asked. Well, yes, but then we're good. Raj turned to leave, then paused. You know, if you want, I could show you how to fix it yourself next time. Take maybe 5 minutes. The diplomat's bioluminescent patches pulsed with what might have been terror or possibly excitement. Is that allowed? Raj shrugged. Don't know. Want to find out? Word spread. Soon, Raj was running an unofficial tech clinic during his lunch breaks. Species that had spent millennia filling out forms to request permission to request assistance were learning the radical concept of basic troubleshooting. The Council's IT department was not amused. This is unacceptable, declared Chief Systems Administrator Volkov during an emergency meeting. There are protocols, procedures. We cannot have people simply... Fixing things? Sarah suggested helpfully. As humanity's lead representative, she'd been called in to address the situation. Without proper documentation! Volkov's neural tendrils writhed in agitation. Do you know what happened yesterday? A Zakatri ambassador reset their own quantum terminal's base configuration, without filling out a single form. Did it work? That's not the point. But it was, of course, exactly the point. The real crisis came when Raj, frustrated with managing his growing unofficial support network, decided to implement a simple ticket tracking system. Simple by human standards, that is. Revolutionary by council norms. You mean... A junior Pelexi tech asked, bioluminescent patches glowing with wonder. We can just respond to problems directly, without convening a review board? Yep, Raj nodded, showing them how to use the system. See this priority field? Red means urgent, yellow is moderate, green is routine. You deal with them in order of importance, not order of submission. But what about seniority, protocol, the sacred order of submission timestamps? Look, Raj said patiently. If someone's quantum core is about to breach, do you really want to wait until you've handled all the "my holoscreen is slightly blue-shifted" tickets that came in before it? The concept was so radical it nearly caused a mass neural shutdown in the Council's IT division. Sarah was reviewing the latest diplomatic incident reports when Krathos burst into her office, their carapace cycling through colors so rapidly it looked like a disco ball. Your IT person, they clicked urgently. The one who introduced the ticket system? Raj, what about him? They're attempting to implement something called user permissions and admin rights. The High Council is in an uproar. They're saying it's a direct attack on the fundamental hierarchical structure of galactic society. Sarah took a long sip of coffee to hide her smile. Oh? How so? The system. It assigns access levels based on technical knowledge and responsibility rather than political rank. A junior technician could potentially have higher system privileges than a senior council member. Well, Sarah said reasonably, would you rather have someone who knows what they're doing managing critical systems, or someone who just happens to have a fancy title? Kathrix's translator made a sound that could only be described as a digital existential crisis. The revolution, when it came, was swift and silent. One day, the Council's IT department was a labyrinth of forms and procedures. The next, it was... well, still a labyrinth, but now it was a labyrinth with a search function and user-friendly interface. The old guard resisted, of course. They filed complaints using the new ticket system, ironically. They formed committees, which were automatically scheduled and coordinated through the new calendar integration. They drafted strongly worded manifestos using the new document collaboration tools. But it was too late. The infection had spread. Species that had never questioned the sacred order of bureaucracy were starting to ask dangerous questions like, why? And, couldn't this be simpler? The phrase, "there's probably an app for that," entered the galactic lexicon. You know what the really funny part is? Raj said to Sarah over coffee. He'd been invited to join the regular coffee sessions after Krathos discovered he could optimize their quantum coffee maker's efficiency by 300%. I didn't even plan any of this. I just got tired of filling out forms in triplicate every time someone's quantum calculator needed new batteries. Spite-driven efficiency. Sarah nodded approvingly. A classic human motivator. Is that what we're calling it now? Krathos asked, their carapace having settled into what Sarah recognized as their resigned acceptance of human chaos color. Better than calling it what it really is. Marcus chimed in, looking up from his tablet where he was helping a group of Pelexi researchers set up a totally unauthorized software development environment. And what's that? Krathos asked, though their translator suggested they weren't sure they wanted to know. Progress, Sarah grinned, raising her coffee cup in a toast. Pure, unfiltered, bureaucracy-destroying progress. The Galactic Council eventually adapted to the new reality, though not without considerable neural restructuring among the more traditional members. They even officially adopted the ticket system, though they insisted on adding a few thousand pages of documentation, which Raj promptly converted into a searchable wiki with an AI assistant. As for the IT revolution, it sparked a wider movement of administrative optimization that spread through the council like a particularly efficient virus. Species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of complexity were discovering the radical joy of simplification. The council's official position is that these changes are concerning and potentially destabilizing. They submitted this opinion through the ticket system, of course. It was automatically categorized as low priority. I don't understand. Ambassador Cathrix's mandibles clicked rapidly as they stared at the small device on Sarah's desk. This is a food preparation unit? It's called an air fryer, Sarah explained, trying not to laugh at the way the ambassador's antennae twitched every time the device made a beeping sound. Basically, it uses hot air circulation to... But the Council's Nutritional Standards Committee has already established optimal sustenance preparation protocols, Cathrix protested. Every species' dietary requirements have been carefully calculated and... They were interrupted by a loud ding. Perfect timing, Sarah grinned, opening the device. Want to try some French fries? The Galactic Council's approach to food was exactly what you'd expect from a bureaucracy that had elevated procedure to religious status, standardized, efficient, and completely devoid of joy. Each species had their nutritional requirements met through carefully formulated nutrient pastes, optimized for maximum biological efficiency. Then humans arrived with their cookies. You mean to tell me, the head of nutritional standards was practically vibrating with distress, that you deliberately apply high temperatures to organic compounds until they undergo chemical changes, not for efficiency, but for flavor? Suggested Carmen Rodriguez, the human chef who'd inadvertently started this particular crisis by opening a small cafe in the council's diplomatic quarter. Yeah, that's called cooking. It's kind of our thing. But why? Carmen gestured at the line of diplomats stretching out her door, each clutching their council-approved nutrient paste containers like guilty contraband. Because, she said simply, life's too short for bland food. The thing about taste is that once you discover it exists, it's very hard to go back to not having it. The council had spent millennia perfecting the science of nutrition while completely ignoring the art of cuisine. They'd mapped every species' digestive processes in exacting detail, but had never stopped to ask if anyone actually enjoyed their food. It turned out that most species had taste buds, or equivalent sensory organs. They just hadn't been using them. This is... A Palexi diplomat's bioluminescent patches were pulsing with unprecedented patterns as they tried their first chocolate chip cookie. What is happening in my mouth? That's called pleasure, Carmen explained patiently. Your taste receptors are responding to the combination of sugar, butter, and chocolate. Perfectly safe, I assure you. We checked compatibility with your biology first. But it serves no nutritional purpose. Sure it does, Carmen grinned. It makes you happy. The revolution spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Species that had contentedly consumed nutrient paste for generations were suddenly discovering that food could be more than just fuel. The council's carefully regulated dining halls began to empty as more and more diplomats found their way to Carmen's cafe. The Nutritional Standards Committee was not pleased. This is a direct violation of Regulation 7249F, subsection 12, the committee head announced during an emergency session. All sustenance must be standardized and optimized for maximum efficiency. Have you tried the croissants? Asked a Zactree representative, their carapace flushed with what everyone recognized as their species' version of culinary enthusiasm. That's not the point! But of course it was exactly the point. Sarah found Marcus in Carmen's cafe, surrounded by tablets displaying various molecular structures. Carmen herself was leaning over his shoulder, frowning at the data. Please tell me you're not trying to scientifically optimize taste again, Sarah said, sliding into a seat with her coffee, which, thanks to Cathrix's newly discovered passion for barista arts, was better than ever. Actually, Marcus grinned, we're doing something much more interesting. We're teaching alien species how to adapt human recipes to their biology. Did you know that the Palexi can taste sweetness but interpret it completely differently than we do? Their brain chemistry reads it as something closer to what we'd call umami. Is that why they've been putting chocolate in their soup? Exactly. And the Zactree? Their taste receptors are activated by molecular vibrations rather than chemical bonds. We've been helping them develop what they call resonant cuisine. It's fascinating. Carmen nodded enthusiastically. Last week we figured out how to make a version of tiramisu that works with their biology. The council's physics department is still trying to explain how it's possible. Speaking of the council, Sarah raised an eyebrow. How are they handling all this culinary innovation? Marcus and Carmen exchanged looks. Well, Marcus said carefully, they're still officially opposed to unauthorized gastric experimentation. But? Carmen grinned. But I've got 3 committee members who come in through the back door every morning for espresso and pastries. And yesterday, I caught a senior administrator trying to reverse engineer my pizza recipe. The real crisis came when species started combining their newfound culinary knowledge with their own biological peculiarities and cultural traditions. The Peleksi developed a form of bioluminescent sushi that pulsed in time with the eater's pleasure responses. The Zektri created crystalline confections that resonated at frequencies that produced what they described as taste music. Even the traditionally stoic Kwanthi got in on the act, using their natural electromagnetic fields to create what they called quantum-seasoned dishes. The Council's Nutritional Standards Committee officially declared it chaos. Everyone else called it fusion cuisine. You realize what you've done? Cathrix asked Carmen during one of the now regular culinary experimentation sessions in her cafe's test kitchen. Their carapace had settled into the iridescent purple that the human staff had learned meant they were deeply contented. Carmen looked up from where she was helping a Kwanthi chef adjust the electromagnetic frequency of their latest creation. You've corrupted the entire galactic community with your species' irrational obsession with deliciousness? With turning simple biological necessity into an art form. Cathrix's translator managed to convey both accusation and admiration. Do you know what happened in my hive cluster last cycle? The larval caretakers requested permission to experiment with spices in the nutrient supplements. Did they succeed? That's not the point. The point is... Cathrix paused, mandibles clicking in what everyone now recognized as their version of sheepish admission. The point is, the larvae are developing faster and showing increased cognitive function, and they seem happier. Carmen smiled. Sounds like the point to me. The Galactic Council eventually gave up trying to standardize food preparation. They had to. Their own cafeteria staff had gone rogue, replacing the nutrient paste dispensers with actual cooking equipment. These days, the Council's diplomatic quarter is famous for having some of the most innovative and diverse cuisine in the galaxy. Species that once prided themselves on their logical approach to nutrition now debate cooking techniques with the same passion they once reserved for quantum physics. As for Carmen's Cafe, it's still there, still serving as ground zero for culinary experimentation. The line still stretches out the door, but now it's as likely to be for Zeketri-resonant pastries or Peleksi-luminescent lattes as it is for human dishes. The Council's Nutritional Standards Committee still exists, technically. These days, though, they focus less on regulating food and more on ensuring all species have access to the ingredients and equipment they need to explore their own culinary traditions. Their latest project? Working with Carmen to establish the galaxy's first culinary institute, where species can learn each other's cooking techniques and create new fusion cuisines. The committee head still insists that all this cooking business is highly irregular and potentially destabilizing to the galactic order. They say this while eating Carmen's latest creation, a croissant that somehow incorporates Zektri resonance technology to produce what humans would call a perfect umami taste for Peleksi biology. They've already asked for the recipe, the end of standardized nutrition as they knew it.